March 18th, 2004, 05:47 hours. Ramadi. Mitchell pressed his eye to the scope. 800 yards downrange, 4 insurgents assembled a mortar behind a crumbling wall. "Wind," he whispered. Reeves checked the flags. 10 miles per hour. Maybe less. They're barely moving. Mitchell adjusted for drop. His finger found the trigger. Alpha Company's convoy would roll into the kill zone in 6 minutes. He had one shot to stop this. He exhaled, squeezed. The rifle kicked. Through the scope, he watched the round spark 3 feet left of target. The insurgents scattered. "What happened?" Reeves hissed. Mitchell's hands shook. "I don't know." Below the convoy appeared. The mortars fired. The lead Humvee erupted in flame. Mitchell watched Sergeant Torres try to pull his gunner out. Watched the vehicle cook off. Watched Torres disappear. 4 dead. 7 wounded. Because Mitchell missed. That night, he sat outside the chow hall staring at his hands. Staff Sergeant Kowalski found him there. "You did your job, Mitchell." "I missed." "Wind happens." Kowalski lit a cigarette. "That's war." "He had a daughter, 8 years old." Kowalski exhaled smoke. "Yeah, he did." He paused. "You go down this road, you'll eat your weapon in 6 months. You calculate, you adjust, you fire. Sometimes math isn't enough." But Mitchell wasn't listening. He was thinking about 3 feet of empty air. About wind that killed 4 men while flags hung limp. After Kowalski left, Mitchell pulled his logbook and started writing. Temperature, humidity, barometric pressure, every detail. At the bottom, his hand shaking, he wrote, "The flags lied, but the bullet knew." The obsession started that night. Between patrols, Mitchell interviewed other snipers. Sergeant Mike Chen from 2nd Battalion had been in country 5 years. 43 confirmed kills. "How do you calculate wind?" Mitchell asked. "I don't." Chen poured coffee that looked like motor oil. "I fire 3 rounds. First shot shows the wind. Second compensates. Third connects. Maybe." "What's your hit rate?" "First shot 30% at this range." Chen shrugged. "By shot 3, 70%. If they haven't moved." "There has to be a better way." Chen studied him. "You're the Ramadi kid." Mitchell nodded. "Look, I get it. We all carry ghosts." Chen leaned forward. "But you can't fix wind. It's chaos. Best you can do is make peace with it." Mitchell stood. "I don't want peace. I want answers." 3 weeks later, Mitchell's squad pulled overwatch near the Syrian border. Dawn patrol. Cold enough to see your breath. Mitchell scanned the horizon through his scope. A contrail cut across the purple sky, twisting, bending. "The trail," he muttered. "What?" Reeves didn't look up. "That contrail. It's showing wind at altitude. You can see exactly how the air moves by watching the vapor bend." "So," Mitchell's mind raced. "Bullets leave trails too. Vapor wakes. Too faint to see normally, but what if we could capture them, measure them?" Reeves stared. "You got that look again." "What look?" "The one where you're about to do something stupid." Mitchell smiled for the first time in weeks. "Yeah, probably." Back at base, Mitchell found Gunny Sergeant Paul Mathers in his hooch. Mathers had been a sniper instructor at Quantico for 12 years before volunteering for combat. 51 years old, gray hair, eyes that never blinked. Mitchell explained his idea. Photograph bullet vapor trails, measure the wake curvature, calculate wind backwards. Mathers scratched his jaw. "You'd need equipment we don't have." "What if we don't need real-time fire 1 round, photograph it, calculate wind, adjust for shot 2? That's 2 shots to make 1 hit. Better than 3 shots and missing all of them." Mathers leaned back. "You know they'll laugh at you. Some corporal trying to revolutionize ballistics. The brass will bury this. Will you help me anyway?" Long pause. Outside, a helicopter thumped past. 30 years ago, I missed a shot in Beirut," Mathers said quietly. I still see his face. The guy who lived because I didn't calculate wind right. He met Mitchell's eyes. Yeah, kid. Let's go tilt at windmills. They worked in secret for a month. Mathers borrowed a camcorder from Public Affairs. Mitchell bought a laser thermometer with his own money. They requisitioned extra ammunition claiming marksmanship training. The testing ground was an abandoned quarry 15 miles out. Free fire zone. First week 7 attempts. 7 failures. The camera's frame rate was too slow. Maybe this is stupid, Mitchell said after the 7th miss. Sun setting over the desert. Mathers spit tobacco juice. You know what breakthrough is? It's the moment right before you quit when you don't. That's not a real definition. It is for Marines. Mitchell laughed despite himself. We're idiots. Roger that. May 2nd, 2004. Mitchell watched the sunset thinking about contrails. He remembered high school physics. Mr. Patterson showing how to see sound waves with lasers and smoke. Particulates, Mitchell said suddenly. Mathers looked up. What? We can't see the vapor trail because there's nothing to illuminate it. What if we add particles to the air smoke? Something the bullet's wake would disturb. Kid, the desert is already dust. Not fine enough. Not suspended right. Mitchell paced. Smoke grenades, but finer. They tried it the next day. Modified smoke grenade positioned downrange. When Mitchell fired through the cloud, the camera caught it. A corkscrew pattern. A visible ghost showing exactly how wind had pushed the bullet. Holy hell. Mathers breathed watching playback. It's like seeing the invisible. They fired 20 more rounds. Each left its signature in the smoke. By measuring the curvature with a protractor, they calculated wind speed within 2% of actual conditions. It works, Mitchell whispered. It actually works. Mathers nodded slowly. Now comes the hard part. What's that? Convincing someone who matters. Getting a meeting with Colonel Raymond Delaney required Mathers to cash in 28 years of favors. They were granted 15 minutes on May 20th, 2004 at 14:30 hours. Delaney entered on time, followed by a civilian. Wireframe glasses. Soft hands. This is Dr. Robert Williams, ballistics expert from Aberdeen Proving Ground. Delaney sat. He's here because when Gunny Mathers told me your proposal, I thought he'd gone senile. Dr. Williams will determine if you're a genius or just insane. He folded his hands. You have 12 minutes. Mitchell's mouth went dry. He glanced at Mathers, who nodded. Sir, 73% of sniper misses in theater are wind-related. That's from after-action reports across 6 battalions. Mitchell opened his notebook. The problem is, our wind-reading methods only show surface conditions. Bullets travel through multiple atmospheric layers. Dr. Williams interrupted. We're aware, Corporal. The military has spent millions on wind sensors laser systems. None work reliably in combat. Because they measure wind before the shot, Mitchell said. I'm proposing we measure it with the shot. He showed the video, explained the calculations. As he spoke, Williams leaned forward. When Mitchell finished, silence. Williams walked to the window. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. He turned back. And I once evaluated a proposal to train dolphins to carry explosives. Mitchell's heart sank. It's dumb because it shouldn't work. The computational requirements, the visual processing extracting wind vectors in field conditions. Williams paused. And yet your video shows correlation within 2% of our best laboratory equipment. Using a Radio Shack camcorder and a notebook. Delaney spoke. Doctor. I need to run proper tests, calibrated equipment. Williams looked at Mitchell. But if this holds up... He didn't finish. He didn't need to. Delaney stood. 2 weeks, Dr. Williams. Test it, verify it, report back. Corporal Mitchell, you're temporarily attached to weapons development. Special assignment. He fixed Mitchell with a stare that could drill steel. And Corporal, if this is an elaborate prank, I will personally ensure you spend the rest of your enlistment cleaning latrines in the Mojave Desert. Clear. Crystal, sir. Outside, Mathers put a hand on Mitchell's shoulder. You know what you just did? Probably ended my career. You made them listen. That's harder than any shot you'll ever take. The testing phase was brutal. Dr. Williams brought equipment from Aberdeen, high-speed cameras, laser anemometers, computational software. 2 weeks at 29 Palms, California. Mitchell watched PhD scientists in lab coats dissect his jury-rigged idea with surgical precision. 3,000 rounds fired. Every variable tested. June 3, 2004. Williams presented findings to Colonel Delaney and a room of skeptical officers. Mitchell stood in back feeling like a kid at a science fair. Williams's voice was clinical. The system works. Against all probability, Corporal Mitchell's vapor trail analysis achieves wind calculation accuracy within 2.3% margin of error compared to laboratory-grade instrumentation. In field conditions, it outperforms traditional methods by factor of 3. A major raised his hand. But it requires 2 shots, tactically unsound. Less unsound than firing 5 rounds and missing all of them, Williams replied. This method makes the first shot informative rather than wasted. Questions went on for an hour. Finally, Delaney stood. Here's what's happening. Dr. Williams will refine the system. We'll develop a field-deployable prototype, and we'll test it where it matters, in theater, under fire. He looked at Mitchell. Corporal, you're part of the development team. Congratulations. You just volunteered to put your life where your mouth is. They called it VT-1. Vapor Trail System Mark I. Development took 8 months at Quantico. Mitchell worked alongside engineers, contractors, scientists with clearances he couldn't know about. The final system was elegant. Modified scope with high-speed optical sensors. Connected to a handheld processor the size of a smartphone. Fire a tracer round. Sensors capture the vapor wake. Processor calculates wind vectors in 3 seconds. Displays correction data in the scope. Cost per unit $47,000. Less than a single Javelin missile. January 2005. First field test. 12 Marine snipers brought to Quantico for training. Mitchell was technical advisor, watching men with years more experience learn his system. Staff Sergeant James Callahan fired at 1,200 yards, used VT-1 to calculate 15-mile-per-hour crosswind. Put his second round through a target the size of a coffee can. Feels like cheating, Callahan said. Mitchell smiled. That's the idea. The results were extraordinary. Traditional method, 34% first-round hit probability at 800 yards. Average 3.2 rounds to target. 45 seconds to engagement. VT-1 method, 68% first-round hit. 89% second-round hit. Average, 1.9 rounds to target. 38 seconds to engagement. At 1,000 yards plus VT-1, nearly tripled effective range. Delaney reviewed the data. You understand what this means. Sir, you've made the invisible visible. Given us an advantage, enemies won't understand until too late. He paused. That's how wars shift. Not with tanks or jets, but with some kid who refused to accept that good enough was good enough. February 2005. Insurgent activity in Fallujah intensified. Al-Qaeda fighters conducting coordinated attacks. Decision made VT-1 goes to war. Mitchell volunteered to go back. He'd been promoted to sergeant, given decorations, offered training positions stateside. He turned them all down. I need to know it works, he told Mathers. Not on a test range, where it matters. Mathers nodded. Your dad's going to kill me for not talking you out of this. My dad will understand. March 2005. 13 months after Ramadi. Mitchell was back in Iraq. Back in the heat and dust and danger. But this time, carrying something that felt like redemption. First operational use happened March 7, 2005. Jolan District, Fallujah. Sergeant Carlos Ruiz spotted enemy fighters setting up a machine gun in a mosque minaret. 750 yards away, Ruiz activated VT-1, fired his tracer into the mosque's exterior wall. The system calculated 22 miles per hour crosswind from left at 45 degrees, completely invisible to naked eye. His second shot hit center mass. Time from target acquisition to kill 31 seconds. Reports came in over 3 months. VT-1 teams engaging at impossible ranges. 2 shots instead of 5 meant less sound signature, less muzzle flash, less time exposed. Mitchell kept a private tally, 247 confirmed kills over 90 days. 0 VT-1 operators killed in action. The enemy noticed. Intelligence intercepts showed the pattern. Insurgents avoiding daytime movement. One translated message read, "The Americans have new magic. Their first bullet always finds. Do not give them the shot." But those 247 lives sat heavy on Mitchell. Late one night, he found himself on the observation post watching stars over Fallujah. Mathers found him there. Can't sleep. Just thinking. About Torres. About all of them. Torres the convoy. And the 247. The ones VT-1 killed. Mathers was quiet. You know what the difference is between you and most warriors. Most compartmentalize. Killing in one box, living in another. But you keep count. You remember. Is that better or worse? It's human. Mathers leaned against sandbags. You didn't invent killing. You invented accuracy. In war, that saves more lives than it takes. Tell that to the 247. Can't. They're dead. But I can tell it to the 38 Marines who are alive because VT-1 eliminated threats before those threats killed them. Mathers gripped his shoulder. Your conscience is a good thing. Keep it. But don't let it blind you to the math. The math. Mitchell had always been good at math. But some equations didn't balance. August 2005. Mitchell returned stateside. Promotion. Decorations. Job offers from every defense contractor. Lockheed Martin offered $180,000 a year. Raytheon wanted him for targeting systems. The Marines wanted him to stay. He turned them all down. September 15, 2005. Sergeant James Mitchell walked out of Camp Lejeune for the last time. Honorably discharged, 24 years old, carrying a duffel bag and a secret that would never fully leave him. He drove home to Crossville, Tennessee. His father still ran Mitchell & Son HVAC repair out of a converted garage. His mother cried. His father just hugged him hard, then handed him a wrench. Thought you might want your old job back. And that's what James Mitchell did. He came home, fixed air conditioners, learned the business, took it over when his father retired in 2009, married a teacher named Sarah Chen in 2007, had 2 daughters, Emma and Grace, who knew their father had been a Marine but didn't understand what that meant. The notebook filled with sketches and equations and names of lost men sat in a locked drawer in his workshop. He hadn't opened it in years. VT-1 evolved. By 2008, integrated into targeting computers across every branch. By 2012, civilian versions on high-end sporting rifles. By 2015, incorporated into AI-assisted smart scopes that calculated wind automatically. Mitchell never patented it. Never took a cent beyond his salary. When a reporter from Popular Mechanics tracked him down in 2016, Mitchell gave a short interview in his workshop surrounded by broken compressors and copper piping. "Do you regret leaving the military?" the reporter asked. "Given how much your invention changed warfare." Mitchell thought about Torres, about Ramadi, about 247 kills and 38 saved Marines, about his daughters asleep upstairs who would never see what he'd seen. "I didn't invent anything," he said finally. "I just learned to read what the wind was already writing. Anybody could have done it." But they didn't. You did. Mitchell smiled slightly. Yeah, I guess I did. The reporter pressed. What do you want people to know about VT-1? Mitchell was quiet, wiping grease from his hands with a red rag. Outside, the Tennessee evening settled in. Crickets starting their chorus. I want them to know that war is expensive, not just in money, but in pieces of yourself you leave behind. He gestured around the workshop at ordinary machinery. And I want them to know that sometimes the bravest thing isn't pulling the trigger. It's coming home and living with what you've done. The interview ended. The reporter left. Mitchell returned to fixing a busted compressor for Mrs. Henderson down the street. But in Fallujah and Ramadi, in every combat zone where American snipers operated, VT-1 continued its silent work. Measuring wind, correcting trajectories, saving lives by taking them with unprecedented precision. And somewhere in a locked drawer in Tennessee, a notebook held the names of 4 men who died because one Marine couldn't read the wind, and 247 men who died because he finally could. The wind still blew. But now, for the first time in history, someone could see it. The thing about coming home is that nobody tells you how loud silence can be. Mitchell discovered this his first night back in Crossville. September 2005. His childhood bedroom looked exactly the same. High school football trophy on the shelf. Faded poster of Dale Earnhardt. But everything felt wrong, like wearing someone else's skin. He lay in bed listening to crickets. No mortars, no diesel generators, no radio chatter. Just crickets and the hum of the AC unit his father had installed 20 years ago. At 0300 hours, he gave up on sleep. Found himself in the garage workshop staring at his father's tools. Wrenches organized by size. Screwdrivers hung on pegboard. Everything in its place. Everything had a purpose you could see and understand. His father found him there at dawn, sitting on a workbench holding a torque wrench. Couldn't sleep? His father asked. Something like that. His father poured coffee from a thermos, handed Mitchell a cup. They sat in silence for a while, watching morning light creep through the garage door. Your mother wants to throw you a welcome home party, his father said finally. Dad, no. I told her you'd say that. He sipped his coffee. She's doing it anyway. Sunday, family and a few neighbors. You don't have to talk about anything you don't want to. Mitchell nodded. The coffee tasted like home. Nothing like the motor oil brew they had in Iraq. The business is doing okay, his father continued. But I'm not getting any younger. Could use help with the commercial accounts. Big jobs, hospital systems, office buildings. He paused. No pressure. Just if you're looking for work. I don't know what I'm looking for yet. His father studied him. You will. Just takes time. But time moved differently now. In Iraq, every second mattered. Calculate, adjust, fire. 3 seconds could mean life or death. Here, days blurred together. Mitchell would start fixing a furnace and look up to find 3 hours had vanished. The welcome home party happened on Sunday, September 18th. 30 people crammed into his parents' backyard. Neighbors he'd known his whole life. His Uncle Frank, who'd served in Vietnam. Mrs. Chen from the Chinese restaurant who'd given him free egg rolls when he was in high school. Everyone wanted to know about Iraq. Everyone thanked him for his service. Nobody knew what questions to ask, and Mitchell didn't know what answers to give. Did you see any action? His cousin Jeremy asked. 21 years old. Engineering student at UT Knoxville. Some. What was it like? Mitchell looked at his beer. Bud Light. Cold. American. Hot. Jeremy waited for more. Mitchell didn't give it. Mrs. Henderson, who lived 3 houses down, cornered him by the grill. 74 years old. Husband had died in Korea. My Eddie never talked about it either, she said quietly. Not for 30 years. Then one day he just started, told me everything. She touched Mitchell's arm. Whenever you're ready, someone will listen. Thank you, ma'am. And my air conditioner is making a funny noise. Your father says you're working with him now. Mitchell smiled for the first time that day. Yes, ma'am. I'll come by Tuesday. That became his life. Fixing air conditioners, replacing compressors, installing new HVAC systems in office buildings. The work was simple, mechanical, honest. You diagnosed the problem. You fixed it. You moved on. Unlike war where problems didn't fix, they just multiplied. October 2005. Mitchell was under a house in the crawl space replacing ductwork when his phone rang. Block number. Sergeant Mitchell. A voice he didn't recognize. Speaking. This is Captain Lisa Torres, Frank Torres's sister. Mitchell's hands stopped working. He hadn't heard that name since Ramadi. I wanted to thank you, she continued. For what you did. For trying to save my brother. Ma'am, I didn't. I missed the shot that could have saved him. Silence on the line. Then, that's not what his squad mates told me. They said you took the shot you had, that the wind was impossible that day, that you carried that weight when you didn't have to. Mitchell closed his eyes. The crawl space felt too small suddenly. Ma'am, I appreciate you calling, but I'm not sure what you want me to say. I don't want you to say anything. I want you to know that Frank's daughter, Sophia, she's 10 now. She's playing soccer, getting straight A's, and she knows her dad was a hero. That's enough for our family. A pause. I hope someday it's enough for you too. The line went dead. Mitchell lay there in the dark crawl space, listening to his own breathing, feeling the weight of Virginia clay pressing down from above. That night, he opened the locked drawer in his workshop, pulled out the notebook, flipped to the page dated March 18, 2004, his handwriting shaking slightly. SGT Frank Torres, SSGT Mike Kowalski, CPL Danny Reeves, PFC James Wright. 4 names. 4 men who died because wind lied. He flipped forward, found pages of calculations, diagrams, sketches of vapor trails. Found the breakthrough moment May 2, 2004. Particulates make the invisible visible. Then he flipped to the back pages, the ones he'd kept separate, private. March through August 2005. Combat reports, kill confirmations, the 247. He'd written down every single one. Date, location, range, wind conditions. Not names because he didn't know their names, just numbers. But each number was a person who'd woken up that morning not knowing it was their last. Mitchell pulled out a pen, started writing. What are you doing? Sarah's voice startled him. He looked up. She stood in the doorway of his workshop. Sarah Chen, 26 years old, 3rd grade teacher at Crossville Elementary. They'd known each other in high school, reconnected at a coffee shop 2 weeks ago. Had been on 3 dates. He closed the notebook quickly. Nothing, just organizing. She walked in, looked at his hands. You're shaking. I'm fine. James. She sat down on the stool next to him. You don't have to pretend with me. I'm not pretending. My grandfather fought in World War II, Burma campaign. He had a notebook too, kept it locked in his desk. My grandmother found it after he died. She touched Mitchell's hand gently. It's okay to remember. It's okay to carry it. Just don't let it be the only thing you carry. Mitchell looked at her. Really looked at her. She wasn't asking him to explain, wasn't asking him to share, just sitting there, present. I invented something in Iraq, he said quietly. A targeting system. It made snipers more accurate. That's good, right? Saved lives. It also took lives. 247 confirmed kills in 3 months using my system. He opened the notebook, showed her the pages. I keep track, every single one. Sarah studied the numbers. You blame yourself for this. I gave them the tool. And they used it to protect themselves and others. That's what soldiers do. She closed the notebook carefully. James, you didn't pull those triggers. You didn't start that war. You tried to help people come home. 247 people didn't come home because of me. And how many did come home? How many Marines are alive right now because your invention meant their enemies couldn't shoot back, because positions got eliminated before they could attack convoys or plant IEDs? She met his eyes. You can't just count one side of the equation. Mitchell had never thought about it that way. He'd been so focused on the kills, on the responsibility, that he'd forgotten about the lives saved, the attacks prevented, the convoys that made it through. Mathers told me the same thing, he said. 38 confirmed saves. Marines who would have died if VT-1 hadn't worked. Then why are you only counting the 247? Good question. Mitchell didn't have a good answer. They sat in silence for a while. Sarah picked up a wrench, turned it over in her hands. Can I tell you something about my grandfather? Okay. He killed 17 Japanese soldiers in Burma. Confirmed. Probably more. He kept track too in his notebook. But you know what else he kept track of? Every man in his unit who made it home. 37 names. He said those names at dinner every Thanksgiving. Every single year until he died. She set the wrench down. He carried both James. The weight of what he'd done and the gratitude for what it meant. How did he live with it? By living, by teaching at the high school for 30 years, by raising 4 kids, by being present. She stood up. By letting people in who wanted to help carry the weight. After she left, Mitchell sat there for a long time. Then he turned to a new page in his notebook. Wrote down 38 names. The Marines whose lives had been confirmed, saved by VT-1. He didn't know all their names either, but he could find out. He made a phone call. Gunny Mathers answered on the 3rd ring. Mitchell, was wondering when you'd call. I need something. The 38. The confirmed saves. I need their names. Mathers was quiet for a moment. That's not usually how we think about it, kid. I know, but I need to think about it that way now. All right. Give me a week. I'll pull the reports. November 2005. Mitchell started working full-time for his father's business. Turned out he was good at it. The diagnostic skills from sniper training translated well. Observe, calculate, execute, find the problem, fix it efficiently. Mrs. Henderson's AC made a funny noise because the belt was loose. Mr. Patterson's furnace wouldn't ignite because the pilot light sensor was dirty. The hospital's climate control system was inefficient because somebody had installed the wrong size ducts 15 years ago. Simple problems, simple solutions. Nobody died if Mitchell got it wrong. They just got a little cold or a little hot until he came back to fix it. But at night, the dreams came. Not every night, but enough. He dreamed about Ramadi, about Torres burning, about the 4 names in his notebook. Sometimes he dreamed about the 247, faces he'd never seen, people he'd killed from 800 yards away through a scope. In the dreams, they all had Sofia Torres's face. 10 years old, playing soccer. December 2005. The package arrived from Mathers. A manila envelope thick with paper. Mitchell opened it at his workbench. 38 names, 38 service records, 38 faces in official military photographs. Men and women who'd been in convoys that didn't get hit. Patrols that didn't get ambushed positions, that didn't get overrun because VT-1 had eliminated threats before they could act. Mitchell read every single record. Memorized every name. Lance Corporal Jennifer Martinez, 22 Phoenix, Arizona. Convoy driver. Would have been killed by sniper fire on April 3, 2005, if Sergeant Ruiz hadn't eliminated the shooter using VT-1. Private First Class. David Kim, 19. San Francisco, California. Machine gunner. Would have been killed by mortar fire on April 17, 2005, if the mortar team had been allowed to set up. VT-1 stopped them. Corporal Michael O'Brien, 24, Boston, Massachusetts. Squad leader. Would have been killed along with his entire squad by a coordinated ambush on May 2, 2005, if 3 sniper positions hadn't been eliminated within 2 minutes using VT-1. 38 names, 38 lives. 38 families who didn't get the knock on the door from a casualty notification officer. Mitchell added them to his notebook, wrote them on the facing page from the 247, both columns, both weights. Sarah found him there on Christmas Eve. His parents were hosting dinner. She'd been invited. Found him in the workshop instead of inside with family. "You're missing pie," she said. "I'll be there in a minute." She looked at the notebook, opened to both pages. 247 on the left, 38 on the right. Still working on the math, trying to figure out if it balances. Does it? Mitchell closed the notebook. "I don't think that kind of math ever balances. I think you just learn to carry both." Sarah smiled. "That's progress." "Is it?" "Yeah, it is." They went inside. Had pie. Pecan, his mother's specialty. His father told the same Christmas stories he told every year. Uncle Frank fell asleep in the recliner. Normal. Simple. Home. But that night, lying in bed, Mitchell thought about balance. About the mathematics of guilt. About how you measure a life saved against a life taken. About whether 38 justified 247, or whether that was even the right question. He thought about something Mathers had said in Iraq. "Your conscience is a good thing. Keep it. But don't let it blind you to the math." Maybe the math wasn't about balance. Maybe it was about accuracy. About making sure every shot counted, every decision mattered, every calculation was as precise as humanly possible. Because in war, in life, in everything that mattered, there was no such thing as a perfect shot. There was only the best shot you could take with the information you had and the time you were given. And sometimes the best you could do was remember all of it. The 247 and the 38. The failures and the successes. The weight and the gratitude. Mitchell pulled out his phone. Texted Sarah, "Thank you for the pie and for everything else." She replied immediately, "You're welcome." For both. January 2006. Mitchell proposed to Sarah at the same coffee shop where they'd reconnected. She said yes. They got married that summer, small ceremony, family and close friends. His father was best man. Mathers flew in from California. At the reception, Mathers pulled Mitchell aside. "Got something for you." He handed Mitchell a framed letter, official USMC letterhead. Mitchell read it. It was from Corporal Michael O'Brien, the squad leader from Boston, one of the 38. "Dear Sergeant Mitchell, I don't know if you'll ever read this, but Gunny Mathers said he'd try to get it to you. I wanted to say thank you. On May 2nd, 2005, my squad was moving through Fallujah when we got hit. Should have been a massacre. We were exposed, no cover, and there were at least 3 enemy positions with overlapping fields of fire. But nothing happened. We heard shots, but they weren't aimed at us. They were aimed at the people about to kill us. Later, we found out it was a VT-1 team. 3 snipers working in coordination using your system. They eliminated the threats in under 2 minutes. Saved all 7 of us. I'm back home now. Boston PD. Got married last month. Starting a family. And none of that would have happened if you hadn't invented a way to see wind. I know this probably sounds small compared to what you've been through, but I wanted you to know you gave me my life back. Gave 7 families their sons back. Gave my future kids a father they'll actually get to meet. Thank you doesn't seem like enough, but it's all I've got. Semper Fi, Corporal Michael O'Brien. Mitchell stared at the letter. His hands shook slightly. There's 37 more where that came from, Mathers said quietly. Not everyone wrote, but the ones who did, they wanted you to know. I don't deserve this. That's not for you to decide. You did the work. They're alive. That's the math that matters. Mitchell looked across the reception hall. Sarah was laughing with his mother. His father was telling a story to a group of uncles. Everyone was happy, present, alive. The 247 still count, Mitchell said. Yeah, they do. They always will. Mathers gripped his shoulder. But so do the 38. And so do the families of the 38. And so do the kids, those 38 will have, and the people those kids will help, and the ripples that go out forever because you decided that good enough wasn't good enough. That's a lot of weight. It is. But weight makes you strong if you let it. The reception continued. Mitchell danced with Sarah, ate cake, took pictures, lived. And in his pocket, folded carefully, Corporal O'Brien's letter rested against his heart. A reminder that mathematics could sometimes surprise you, that equations didn't always balance the way you expected, that sometimes the answer wasn't found in the numbers themselves, but in what the numbers represented. Lives, choices, consequences, hope. Later that night, alone with Sarah in their new apartment, Mitchell pulled out his notebook one last time. Added one more entry. Not a name, not a number, just a question. What do I do with this weight? And underneath in Sarah's handwriting, because he'd asked her to write it, an answer, you carry it forward. You build a life worthy of the gift. You honor both the 247 and the 38 by being present, being grateful, and being human. Mitchell closed the notebook. Put it back in the locked drawer. He didn't need to open it as often anymore. The weight hadn't disappeared. It never would. But it had shifted somehow. Become something he could carry while also carrying joy and love and the simple gift of an ordinary life. Outside, the Tennessee night was quiet. No mortars, no diesel generators, just crickets and the hum of air conditioners keeping families cool while they slept. And in that silence, finally James Mitchell began to understand what peace might sound like. Peace, Mitchell discovered, was harder to maintain than war. By 2007, he'd settled into a rhythm. Work 6 days a week with his father's HVAC business. Sunday dinners at his parents' house. Date nights with Sarah every Friday. Life had a structure, a predictability that should have felt comforting. But in March 2007, the phone call came that shattered that careful peace. Sergeant Mitchell. The voice was young, uncertain. This is Corporal Jake Hensley. I served with Carlos Ruiz in Fallujah. I got your number from Gunny Mathers. Mitchell was in his truck driving between jobs. He pulled over. What can I do for you, Corporal? It's about Carlos. He's, A long pause. He shot himself last week. His wife found him in the garage. The world tilted. Mitchell gripped the steering wheel. What? The funeral's on Saturday. Arlington. His wife asked me to contact people from his unit. I thought you should know, because of VT1. What does VT1 have to do with it? Hensley's voice dropped. He kept records, Sergeant. Every kill, every shot. He had notebooks full of them. His wife said he couldn't sleep anymore. Said he kept seeing their faces even though he never actually saw their faces, just through the scope. Mitchell knew. He knew exactly. Did he leave a note? Yeah, it said I was too good at my job. After Hensley hung up, Mitchell sat in his truck on the side of Route 70 for 20 minutes. Cars passed. Life continued. But something inside him had cracked open again. Carlos Ruiz. First operational use of VT1. March 7, 2005. 31 seconds from target acquisition to kill. Mitchell had used that statistic in reports and presentations. Proof that the system worked. He'd never asked what happened after. What happened to the man who'd pulled that trigger? That night, Sarah found him in the workshop staring at his notebook. James. He told her about Carlos, about the call, about the funeral. He wouldn't be able to attend because he couldn't afford to fly to Arlington. Couldn't afford to take time off work. Couldn't afford to face what his invention had cost. That's not true, Sarah said quietly. You can't afford not to go. I don't want to see it. I know. But you need to. She was right. She was always right. Saturday, March 17, 2007. Mitchell flew to Washington, D.C., took the metro to Arlington National Cemetery, wore his dress blues for the first time since his discharge, The funeral was small, maybe 30 people. Carlos's wife, Maria, stood at the graveside holding their 6-year-old daughter's hand. The little girl wore a black dress and didn't understand why everyone was crying. After the service, Mitchell approached Maria, didn't know what to say. Nothing felt adequate. "Mrs. Ruiz, I'm James Mitchell. I worked with Carlos on the VT-1 system." She looked at him with red eyes. "You're the one who invented it." "Yes, ma'am." She stared at him for a long moment. Mitchell prepared himself for anger, for blame for the accusation he probably deserved. Instead, she hugged him. "Thank you," she whispered, "for bringing him home the first time." Mitchell's throat closed. "Ma'am, I don't understand." She pulled back, wiping her eyes. "Carlos told me about you, about how VT-1 saved lives, how it meant he could do his job and come home safe." Her voice broke. "The war brought him home with a body. You gave him 2 extra years with his daughter, 2 years of bedtime stories and birthday parties, and teaching her to ride a bike. But he still died." "Yes, he did. Because war doesn't end when you leave the battlefield. It follows you home." She looked at her daughter, who was examining a flower someone had placed on the casket. "But those 2 years mattered, Sergeant Mitchell. They mattered to me. They mattered to Elena, and they mattered to Carlos even when the weight got too heavy." After the funeral, Mitchell found himself at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, walking along the black granite wall, reading names. 58,000 of them, each one a person, each one a weight someone carried. He thought about Carlos, about Torres, about the 247 and the 38, about the mathematics that never balanced, no matter how many times you recalculated. His phone rang. Mathers. "You went to the funeral," Mathers said, not a question. "Yeah." "How you holding up?" "I don't know. Maria thanked me. I don't know what to do with that." Mathers was quiet for a moment. "There's something you should know. Carlos wasn't the first." Mitchell's stomach dropped. "What?" "There've been others, VT-1 operators. 3 confirmed suicides since 2006. 2 more attempts. The Corps is trying to keep it quiet, but word gets around." "Why didn't anyone tell me?" "Because you're not in anymore. And because there's nothing you could have done. These men made their choices. Choices I enabled." "James, listen to me. Every weapon system ever invented has this problem. Pilots who drop bombs, artillery crews who fire shells, drone operators who press buttons from 7,000 miles away. The precision doesn't cause the trauma, the war does. But VT-1 made them more precise, made them better killers. It made them more effective. That's not the same thing." Mathers sighed. "Look, the Corps is implementing new protocols. Better mental health screening, mandatory counseling for snipers, rotation limits. They're trying to learn from this. That doesn't bring Carlos back. No, it doesn't. Nothing does. But it might save the next one." Mitchell flew home that night. Sarah picked him up from the airport. Didn't ask questions, just drove him home and held him while he cried for the first time since Iraq. The next morning, Mitchell made a decision. He called the Department of Defense, asked for the Wounded Warrior Project, got transferred 6 times, finally reached someone who listened. "I want to start a program," Mitchell said, "for snipers, specifically snipers who've used precision targeting systems, counseling peer support something." The woman on the phone was patient. "Mr. Mitchell, we have general PTSD programs." "This isn't general PTSD. This is specific. The psychological weight of being too accurate, of knowing that every trigger pull was a life ended, and that life ended because you were good at your job." "I'm not sure I understand the distinction." "The difference is guilt versus trauma. Most combat veterans deal with survival guilt. Why did I live when they died? But precision operators deal with effectiveness guilt. Why was I so good at killing? It's a different weight." Silence on the line. Then, "Can you come to Washington? I think some people need to hear this." April 2007. Mitchell found himself at the Pentagon in a conference room with people who had more acronyms after their names than he could count. Clinical psychologists, military psychiatrists, DoD policy analysts. He told them about Carlos, about the three others, about his own notebook with 247 names, about the weight that precision created. Dr. Ellen Kovac, a psychiatrist who'd worked with Vietnam veterans for 30 years, leaned forward. What you're describing is moral injury. It's distinct from PTSD. PTSD is about threat and fear. Moral injury is about what you did or failed to do and whether it violated your core values. So it's guilt. It's more complex than guilt. It's a fundamental disruption of moral identity. She pulled out a folder. We've seen this with drone operators. They have lower PTSD rates than ground troops because they're not in physical danger. But they have higher rates of moral injury because they watch their targets die in real time, often see them with their families, then go home and have dinner with their own families 2 hours later. Mitchell understood exactly what she meant. Another psychologist, Dr. Marcus Webb, spoke up. Your VT1 system created a similar dynamic. Snipers became more effective, which meant more kills, which meant more moral weight. And unlike the chaos of close combat, where you can tell yourself it was self-defense, precision shooting is premeditated. You observe, calculate, decide, execute. That's harder to process psychologically. So what do we do about it? Mitchell asked. We study it, Dr. Kovac said. We develop interventions. We train commanders to recognize the signs. We stop treating all combat trauma as the same thing. They talked for 3 hours. By the end, Mitchell had agreed to something he'd never imagined doing, becoming a consultant for a new DoD study on moral injury in precision operators. The work started slowly. Mitchell flew to D.C. once a month, sat in rooms with researchers, shared his experience, read case studies that broke his heart. Sergeant David Park, 28 Marine Sniper VT1 operator. 73 confirmed kills over 2 deployments. Shot himself in 2006. Left a note. I was a good Marine. I was a terrible person. Staff Sergeant Jennifer Walsh, 31 Army Sniper, VT1 operator. 81 confirmed kills. Attempted suicide in 2007. In therapy, she said, "Every time I close my eyes, I see the moment between when I squeeze the trigger and when the bullet hits. That half second where they're still alive and don't know they're about to die. I stole that from 81 people." Lance Corporal Timothy Chen, 24 Marine Sniper, VT1 operator. 57 confirmed kills. Died of alcohol poisoning in 2008. Friends said he drank to forget, drank to sleep, drank until his liver gave out at 24 years old. Mitchell read every case, memorized every name, added them to his private accounting. You can't take responsibility for all of them, Sarah told him one night. They were sitting on their apartment balcony. She was 6 months pregnant with their first daughter. I gave them the tool. And they chose to use it, to serve their country, to protect their fellow Marines. She put his hand on her belly. Emma's going to be born into a world that's safer because precision matters. Because when force is used, it's used accurately. That matters, James. Does it justify the cost? I don't know. Maybe that's not the right question. Maybe the question is, given that war exists, given that violence happens, is it better to be precise or imprecise, to minimize collateral damage or maximize it? Mitchell thought about that. In Iraq, he'd seen what imprecise violence looked like. Artillery barrages that leveled neighborhoods, airstrikes that killed wedding parties, IEDs that didn't discriminate between soldiers and children. VT1 was precise. It killed exactly who it was aimed at and no one else, in the cold mathematics of war that was actually moral progress. But it didn't feel like progress when Carlos Ruiz put a gun in his mouth. May 2007. The DoD study published preliminary findings. The data was stark. VT-1 operators had a 23% higher rate of moral injury symptoms compared to traditional snipers. They also had 34% fewer PTSD symptoms. They were more psychologically safe during deployment, but carried heavier weights afterward. The study recommended mandatory counseling rotation limits of 6 months instead of 12 and peer support groups specifically for precision operators. Mitchell was invited to help design the peer support program. He said yes. June 2007. The first precision operator support group met at Camp Pendleton. 12 veterans, all VT-1, trained, all struggling with what they'd done. Mitchell wasn't supposed to speak. He was just there to observe. But halfway through the session, when one Marine broke down talking about his 47 kills, Mitchell found himself standing. "My name is James Mitchell. I invented VT-1. And I want to tell you something nobody's probably told you. It's okay to feel this weight." The room went silent. You were asked to do an impossible thing. To be both warrior and precision instrument. To end lives efficiently, accurately, without hesitation. And you did it. You did it well. And now you're carrying the cost of that excellence. Mitchell looked at each of them. That cost is real. It's valid. And it doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. A corporal named Rodriguez spoke up. "But we signed up for this. We knew what we were doing." Did you? Did you really know what it would feel like to be this effective, to have an 89% hit rate instead of 34%? To know that every time you pulled the trigger, someone died, and it was because you were that good? Mitchell shook his head. "I didn't know, and I invented the damn thing." Another Marine Staff Sergeant Williams asked, "How do you live with it?" "Honestly, I'm still figuring that out. But I can tell you what's helped me. First, remember the 38. He explained about the confirmed saves, about the Marines who came home because VT-1 worked, about Corporal O'Brien in Boston with his wife and future kids. Second, talk about it. Not to prove you're tough, not to justify what you did, just to share the weight. Because weight shared is weight halved. And third, Rodriguez asked, build a life worthy of the gift. You survived. Carlos didn't. Park didn't. Walsh tried not to. You're still here. So make it mean something. Have families. Build businesses. Teach kids. Do something that puts more into the world than you took out. The session lasted another hour. Mitchell stayed after talking individually with Marines who needed to talk. Some thanked him. Some blamed him. He accepted both. On the drive home, he called Mathers. "I think I found my mission," Mitchell said. "Yeah, what's that?" "Helping clean up the mess I made." "It wasn't a mess, kid. It was progress. Progress just costs more than we want to pay." "Then I'm paying the tab." Over the next 2 years, Mitchell became something unexpected: an advocate. He testified before congressional committees about moral injury. He consulted with the VA on treatment protocols. He wrote articles for military journals about the psychology of precision warfare. And every month he flew to Camp Pendleton or Camp Lejeune or Quantico and sat with Marines who'd used his invention and couldn't sleep anymore. He told them about his notebook, about the 247 and the 38, about Carlos and Torres and all the weight he carried. "Does it get lighter?" they always asked. "No," he'd answer honestly. "But you get stronger. Strong enough to carry it and still live. Strong enough to carry it and still love. Strong enough to carry it and still hope." August 2007. Sarah gave birth to Emma Grace Mitchell. 7 pounds, 3 ounces. Perfect. Mitchell held his daughter in the hospital, this tiny human who'd never know war, never fire a weapon, never carry the weight of precise violence. She was his future, untainted by his past. But she was also his responsibility. His chance to build something that mattered more than body counts and hit percentages. That night, alone with Emma, while Sarah slept, Mitchell made her a promise. "I'm going to tell you everything when you're old enough. About Iraq, about VT-1, about the 247 and the 38, about Carlos and all the others. And I'm going to teach you that precision matters, that excellence matters. But so does mercy. So does restraint. So does knowing when the best shot is the one you don't take. Emma yawned, unimpressed by her father's philosophy. Mitchell smiled. Yeah, you're right. Let's start with keeping you fed and dry. We'll worry about moral complexity later. But the promise remained. And as Emma grew, as Sarah got pregnant again with their second daughter Grace, as Mitchell built his life in Tennessee, while consulting for the military on moral injury, he kept working on that balance. The mathematics never resolved. The 247 didn't cancel out the 38. Carlos's death didn't negate Corporal O'Brien's life. VT1's effectiveness didn't justify or condemn itself. It simply existed. A tool. A choice. A weight. And Mitchell carried it all forward one day at a time, building something he hoped might balance the scales, even though he knew they never truly would. In 2009, the DoD published the full study on moral injury in precision operators. It cited Mitchell's work extensively, recommended his peer support model be adopted across all branches, changed how the military thought about the psychological cost of technological advancement in warfare. 3 more VT1 operators took their own lives that year, but 17 others got help because of the new protocols. Got counseling, got support, got a chance to carry the weight without being crushed by it. The math still didn't balance, but it was moving in the right direction. December 2009. Mitchell got a package in the mail, no return address. Inside was a photograph and a letter. The photograph showed a young man in Boston PD uniform standing with a pregnant woman and a toddler. Corporal Michael O'Brien, one of the 38. The letter read, Sergeant Mitchell, you don't know me, but you saved my husband's life in Fallujah in 2005. This is our family now. Our son Michael Jr. is 2. Our daughter is due in March. Mike talks about you sometimes. About the sniper team that used some new system to protect his squad. He says he owes you his life. I say he owes you our lives, all of us. Thank you for giving us this future. Thank you for carrying whatever weight that cost you. We'll never forget it. Merry Christmas. Sincerely, Catherine O'Brien and family. Mitchell put the photo on his workshop wall, right next to the framed letter from 2006. Added it to the evidence that maybe possibly the weight he carried was bearable because others didn't have to carry it. That night, Sarah found him in the workshop staring at the photo. That's one of the 38, she asked. Yeah, O'Brien. He's got 2 kids now, maybe going to be 3. Sarah wrapped her arms around him from behind. 3 people who exist because you invented something. That's not nothing, James. No, it's not nothing. Is it enough? Mitchell thought about Carlos, about the 3 who died in 2009, about all the weights that didn't balance and never would. I don't know if enough is the right word, but it's something, and something is better than nothing. They stood there together in the workshop, surrounded by tools and notebooks and photographs of lives saved and lives lost, building a quiet peace from the mathematics of war. And outside, the Tennessee winter pressed close, and somewhere in Boston, a family slept safe, and somewhere else, someone who'd used VT1 stared at their ceiling, unable to sleep, and the world turned on, carrying all its weights, all its costs, all its terrible precision. By 2012, Mitchell had stopped counting. Not because the numbers didn't matter, but because they'd grown too large to track. VT1 had evolved beyond anything he'd imagined. The military had integrated it into smart scopes, AI-assisted targeting systems, even autonomous weapons platforms. His original vapor trail concept had become the foundation for precision warfare in the 21st century. And the cost kept accumulating. January 2012. Mitchell was replacing a commercial HVAC system at the Crossville Medical Center when his phone rang. Unknown number, DC area code. Mr. Mitchell, this is Colonel Patricia Vance, Marine Corps Systems Command. I need to speak with you about VT1. Mitchell climbed down from the ladder, stepped outside into the cold. What about it? We're facing a situation. Congressional hearing next month. There's been, let's call it, pushback about autonomous targeting systems based on your original design. What kind of pushback? The kind that questions whether machines should be making kill decisions, whether AI-assisted precision is ethical, whether we've crossed a line. She paused. They want you to testify, to explain the original intent behind VT1. Mitchell's first instinct was to refuse. He'd built a life away from all this. Emma was 5 now, Grace was 3. He had a business to run, a family to protect, a peace he'd carefully constructed. "I'm not sure I'm the right person," he said. "You're the only person. You invented it. You understand both the military value and the human cost. Congress needs to hear from someone who's lived with both." That night, Mitchell discussed it with Sarah. She was grading papers at the kitchen table while the girls played in the living room. "Do you want to do this?" she asked. "No, but I think I have to." "Why?" "Because if I don't speak, someone else will. Someone who only sees the tactical value or only sees the cost. I see both. That's my burden." Sarah set down her red pen. "Then you should go. The girls and I will be fine for a few days." "You sure?" "James, you've spent 7 years helping veterans deal with moral injury. You've built something good from something complicated. If Congress needs to understand that complexity, you're qualified to teach them." February 2012. Mitchell found himself in a hearing room on Capitol Hill, sitting at a table facing a panel of senators who'd never fired a weapon in combat. The room was packed with reporters, military brass, defense contractors, and protesters holding signs outside that read, "No robot killers," and "Humans before machines." Senator Richard Caldwell, chair of the Armed Services Committee, opened the hearing. "Mr. Mitchell, thank you for being here. For the record, you're the inventor of the vapor trail targeting system designated VT1, which has become the basis for most modern precision fire control systems used by our military. Is that correct?" "Yes, sir." "And you're no longer in the military?" "Correct. I was honorably discharged in 2005. I now run an HVAC business in Tennessee." A ripple of surprise went through the room. Caldwell raised an eyebrow. "An HVAC business? That's quite a change. Why did you leave this military?" "Because I needed to learn how to live with what I'd created, sir. Couldn't do that in uniform." Caldwell leaned forward. "Can you explain what you mean by that?" Mitchell chose his words carefully. VT1 made snipers more effective. Higher hit rates, fewer rounds fired, better outcomes tactically. But it also made the act of killing more precise, more deliberate, more impossible to rationalize as chaos or self-defense. That precision has a psychological cost that I didn't fully understand when I invented the system. Senator Maria Gonzalez from California spoke up. "Are you saying your invention was a mistake?" "No, ma'am. I'm saying it was complicated. Every weapon system is. VT1 saved lives. Confirmed, saves number in the hundreds. But it also contributed to moral injury in the operators who used it. Some of them didn't survive that injury." "How many?" Gonzalez pressed. "At last count, 11 confirmed suicides among VT1 operators between 2006 and 2011. 17 more attempts. Dozens dealing with severe moral injury that hasn't yet become fatal." The room erupted. Reporters typed frantically. Protesters outside cheered. Military officials looked grim. Caldwell banged his gavel. "Order. Mr. Mitchell, are you testifying that your invention has caused the deaths of American service members?" "I'm testifying that war has costs beyond the battlefield, sir. VT1 is a tool. The men and women who used it were warriors trying to serve their country. Some of them couldn't carry the weight of being too effective at killing. That's on all of us, not just the technology." Senator James Worthington from Texas, a Marine veteran himself, leaned into his microphone. "Mr. Mitchell, I served in Desert Storm. I know something about the weight of combat, but I also know that precision saves civilian lives, that accurate fire prevents collateral damage, Isn't that worth the cost you're describing? That's the question I ask myself every day, sir. Is the tactical advantage worth the moral injury? Is saving 10 civilian lives worth one operator's suicide? How do you even calculate that? And what's your answer? Mitchell looked directly at him. I don't have one. I have a responsibility. To be honest about both the benefits and the costs. To help the people who carry the weight. To make sure we don't treat precision as a purely technical achievement when it has profound human consequences. The hearing went on for 3 hours. Senators asked about AI integration, autonomous weapons, the future of warfare. Defense contractors testified about the tactical necessity of precision systems. Anti-war activists testified about the moral bankruptcy of efficient killing. But Mitchell's testimony was the one that made headlines. Inventor of precision weapon says it cost American lives. Former Marine questions technology he created. VT-1 creator calls for moral accounting in warfare. The backlash was immediate. Defense contractors accused him of betrayal. Some military officials called him ungrateful. Online commenters called him everything from a coward to a traitor. But he also got emails, hundreds of them, from veterans who understood, from families of operators who'd died, from people who'd been waiting for someone to say what Mitchell had said. One email from Staff Sergeant Jennifer Walsh, the operator who'd attempted suicide in 2007, stood out. Mr. Mitchell, I watched your testimony. I want you to know that when you said, "It's okay to feel this weight," something in me broke open. I've been in therapy for 5 years, trying to not feel it. Trying to logic it away, or minimize it, or pretend it doesn't matter. But you gave me permission to just feel it, and still be okay. Thank you for that. I'm still here. I'm still fighting. And it helps to know the person who invented the thing that broke me is also broken by it. We're carrying it together. Walsh. Mitchell saved that email, read it when the criticism got too loud. March 2012. He returned to Crossville expecting things to go back to normal. Instead, he found his business flooded with calls. Some were customers canceling service. Some were veterans asking for help. Some were reporters wanting interviews. Sarah fielded most of them. James Mitchell is not available for comment. Thank you. But one call she put through. It was from a woman named Dr. Rachel Friedman, professor of ethics at Georgetown University. Mr. Mitchell, I'm writing a book about moral injury and technological warfare. Your testimony was the most honest thing I've heard from anyone inside the military-industrial complex. Would you be willing to speak with me? Mitchell agreed. Over the next 6 months, he spent hours on the phone with Dr. Friedman telling her everything. About Ramadi, about the invention, about Carlos and the others, about the impossible mathematics of precision warfare. Her book, The Cost of Accuracy, Moral Injury in Modern Combat, was published in 2013. Mitchell's story formed the central narrative. The book became required reading at military academies, war colleges, and ethics programs across the country. It also made Mitchell something he'd never wanted to be: a public figure. Speaking invitations came from universities, military bases, veterans organizations. Mitchell turned most of them down. But Sarah encouraged him to accept some. You have something to say that matters, she told him. Not accepting won't make it go away. So Mitchell started speaking. Small events at first. A veterans group in Nashville, an ethics class at the University of Tennessee. But the audiences grew. By 2014, he was speaking at West Point, at Quantico, at the Naval Academy. Always the same message. Precision matters, but so does the cost. Be excellent at your craft, but don't be surprised when excellence extracts a price. Carry the weight, but don't carry it alone. After a talk at the Army War College in April 2014, a young captain approached him. Her name was Lisa Chen, and she was about to deploy to Afghanistan as a sniper team leader. Sir, I'm going to use systems based on your design, and I'm scared. Scared of what? of being good at it, of coming home and not being able to live with how good I was. Mitchell looked at this young woman, maybe 28 years old, about to step into the weight he knew so well. "Can I tell you something nobody told me?" he asked. "Please." It's okay to hesitate. It's okay to question. It's okay to take the shot and then feel the weight of it. That doesn't make you weak. That makes you human. The people who don't feel it, who kill efficiently and sleep soundly, they're the ones we should worry about. But we're trained to be efficient, to eliminate threats without hesitation. I know. That's the contradiction you'll live with. Be a warrior and be human. Both at once. It's impossible and necessary. Mitchell pulled out a card, wrote his email on it. "When you get back, if you need to talk, contact me. Don't wait until it's too late. Don't be Carlos." Chen took the card. "Thank you, sir. And Captain, remember the saves. Count them as carefully as you count the kills. Both matter." She deployed in May. Mitchell didn't hear from her for 7 months. Then in December 2014, an email arrived. "Mr. Mitchell, Captain Chen here. Made it home from Afghanistan. 42 confirmed kills using precision systems. 0 friendly casualties in my area of operations. And I'm struggling, just like you said I would. But I'm reaching out now instead of waiting. Thank you for the permission to be human. Can we talk?" They talked. For hours. Over months. Mitchell connected her with the peer support network he'd helped build. With therapists who understood moral injury. With other operators carrying similar weights. Chen survived. Got help. Stayed in the military, but transferred to training roles where she could teach others not just how to shoot, but how to carry what came after. She became one of Mitchell's success stories. Proof that early intervention mattered. That talking about the weight before it crushed you could save your life. But for every Chen, there were others Mitchell never heard from. Others who stayed silent until silence became permanent. In 2015, the suicide rate among precision operators remained elevated. The DoD protocols helped, but they weren't enough. The fundamental problem remained. Modern warfare demanded precision, and precision demanded a psychological price not everyone could pay. Mitchell kept working, kept speaking, kept answering emails from veterans who needed to know they weren't alone. His daughters grew up watching their father carry this mission alongside his HVAC business. Emma, now 8, asked him once why he spent so much time on the phone with people he'd never met. "Because I made something that hurt people," Mitchell told her. "Not just the people it was supposed to hurt, but the people who used it. So now I try to help them." Does it work? Sometimes, not always, but sometimes is better than never. Emma thought about that. "Are you a hero, Daddy?" Mitchell smiled sadly. "No, sweetheart. I'm just someone trying to clean up a mess. That's not heroism. That's responsibility." By 2016, VT1's legacy had expanded beyond anything Mitchell could have imagined. The technology appeared in everything from police sniper systems to hunting rifles to video games that let teenagers experience precision shooting without consequences. Mitchell hated the video games most of all. When Call of Duty added a VT1 feature that let players see the wind and make impossible shots. Mitchell wrote a letter to the game developer. "You've turned the hardest thing I've ever done into entertainment. You've made killing precise and consequence-free. You've taught a generation that accuracy is just a game mechanic. I can't stop you, but I want you to know what you've trivialized. Every time someone uses VT1 in your game, they're playing with a system that contributed to 11 real suicides and countless cases of moral injury. That's not a game, that's a weight. Please consider adding something to acknowledge that." They never responded. The game sold 23 million copies. But Mitchell kept pushing. Kept speaking truth to an industry that wanted precision without cost accuracy, without weight, technological advancement, without moral accounting. In 2017, he was invited to speak at MIT about the ethics of AI weapons. The auditorium was packed with engineering students who saw the future of warfare as an optimization problem. Mitchell stood at the podium and said, "You're going to build incredible things. Systems that can target enemies with unprecedented precision. Autonomous platforms that can make decisions faster than any human. And you're going to be proud of your work because it will save lives. But I need you to understand something. Every system you build will be used by a human being or to replace a human being, and both of those options have profound moral consequences that your code can't calculate." A student raised her hand. "But isn't precision always better than imprecision? Isn't reducing collateral damage always good?" "Yes. And the people who achieve that precision will pay a price for being so effective. The question isn't whether we should pursue precision. We should. The question is whether we're willing to support the people who deliver it when that precision costs them their humanity." The room was silent. "Build your systems," Mitchell continued. "Make them brilliant. But also build the support structures for the operators. Build the counseling programs. Build the mental health infrastructure. Build the acknowledgement that precision has a cost beyond dollars and man-hours. Build the humanity into the system, not just the efficiency." The speech went viral. Millions of views on YouTube, think pieces in tech magazines, debates in engineering ethics classes. Mitchell became known as the conscience of precision warfare, a title he neither wanted nor could escape. And through it all, he kept fixing air conditioners in Tennessee, kept raising his daughters, kept loving his wife, kept living the ordinary life that balanced the extraordinary weight he carried. Because that was the point he'd realized. The point wasn't to be consumed by the weight or to transcend it. The point was to carry it and still live. To acknowledge the cost and still build something good. To face the complexity and still choose hope. In 2018, Captain Lisa Chen, now a major, sent Mitchell an invitation to her wedding. She was marrying another veteran, someone who understood the weight. They'd met in therapy, built a relationship on shared experience and mutual support. Mitchell attended. Watched two people who'd carried impossible weights find lightness together. Watched them promise to carry future weights as a team. At the reception, Chen introduced Mitchell to her new husband. "This is the man who saved my life," she said. "Not in Afghanistan. After. When I came home and couldn't breathe under the weight." Her husband shook Mitchell's hand. "Thank you. For building something that helped her survive the first time, and for being there when she needed to survive the second time." Mitchell thought about Carlos. About the 11 who didn't survive the second time. About the mathematics that still didn't balance. "I'm glad she reached out," Mitchell said. "That's the difference between surviving and not. Being willing to ask for help. She told me you gave her permission to be human. That's what did it." That phrase again. Permission to be human. Mitchell had said it so many times it had become his mantra. His answer to the impossible contradiction of being both warrior and person, both effective and moral, both precise and human. Later, watching Chen and her husband dance, Sarah squeezed Mitchell's hand. "You did that," she said quietly. "She did that. I just answered the phone." "You answered the phone because you know what it costs not to. That's not nothing, James." Mitchell thought about all the phones he'd answered over the years, all the veterans who'd reached out, all the weights he'd helped carry. It wasn't redemption exactly. The 247 still counted. The 11 suicides still happened. But it was something. Movement, progress, hope built from complexity and pain. The wedding ended. Mitchell flew home to Tennessee, returned to fixing air conditioners and raising daughters and carrying weights that never fully lightened but somehow became bearable through the carrying. And somewhere in Boston, Corporal O'Brien's family grew larger. Somewhere in Afghanistan, new operators learned precision shooting and the protocols to handle its cost. Somewhere in military hospitals, veterans talked about moral injury with therapists who finally understood it wasn't weakness, but humanity. The system Mitchell had invented kept evolving, kept saving lives through accuracy, kept costing lives through the weight of that accuracy. The mathematics never balanced. But the work continued. The support structures grew. The conversation expanded. And in Crossville, Tennessee, James Mitchell kept building his ordinary life on the foundation of extraordinary complexity, proving every day that it was possible to carry impossible weights and still find moments of grace, still build something good, still choose to answer the phone when someone needed permission to be human. Because sometimes salvation wasn't found in resolution or balance or mathematical precision. Sometimes it was found in the simple act of carrying forward together, one weight at a time. The call came on a Tuesday in March 2023, 18 years after Mitchell had left Iraq. "Dad, there's someone here to see you." Emma was 21 now, working at the HVAC business during her gap year before grad school. Mitchell was under the hood of his truck in the garage, replacing a radiator hose. "Tell them I'll be there in 5 minutes." "Dad, I think you'll want to come now." Something in her voice made Mitchell set down his wrench. He wiped his hands and walked to the front office. A young Marine stood there in dress blues. 23, maybe 24 years old. The name tape read Torres. Mitchell's breath caught. "Sergeant Mitchell, I'm Second Lieutenant Sophia Torres. I believe you knew my father." The world tilted. Mitchell steadied himself against the doorframe. Frank Torres's daughter. The 8-year-old from the photographs. Now a Marine officer standing in his shop in Tennessee. "Sophia, yes, I knew your father. He was a good man." He was. She stood at attention, formal military. "May I speak with you privately, sir?" They went to Mitchell's workshop. Sarah brought coffee. Emma quietly closed the door. Sophia sat still rigid, still formal. Then her composure cracked slightly. "I joined the Marines because of him. Because of what he represented. Service, sacrifice. Doing the hard thing because it needed doing." She paused. "And because I needed to understand why he died." Mitchell's throat tightened. "Sophia, your father died because I missed a shot. Because I miscalculated wind. That's on me, not him. I know the official story. I've read the after-action reports. I have security clearance now, so I've read everything." She pulled a folder from her bag. "But I also read about what happened after. About VT1. About how you spent 18 years trying to fix what you thought you broke. I don't understand why you're here." Sophia opened the folder. Inside were photographs. Modern ones. Marines using precision optics. Training exercises. Combat operations. "I'm a platoon commander. My snipers use systems descended from your original design. Because of that, we have the highest mission success rate and lowest casualty rate in the battalion." She looked at him directly. "Last month, my scout sniper eliminated a threat at 100 yards. One shot. Saved my entire platoon from an ambush. He used VT1's successor system." Mitchell didn't know what to say. "My father died because precision wasn't good enough in 2004. Now Marines live because precision is. I didn't come here to blame you, Sergeant Mitchell. I came to thank you for spending 18 years making sure my father's death mattered." The words hit harder than blame ever could. "I don't know if it mattered," Mitchell said quietly. "I just know I couldn't live with not trying." "It mattered. It matters. And I wanted you to know that before I deploy next month. Afghanistan. I'll be carrying the weight of command and weapons built on your ideas, and the memory of a father I barely knew but still love." She stood. "And I wanted to ask you something." "What?" "How do I carry it, all of it? The responsibility, the precision, the weight of effectiveness. You've lived with it longer than anyone. How do you not break?" Mitchell thought about Carlos. About the 11 suicides. About Captain Chen at her wedding. About 18 years of phone calls and emails and veterans reaching out at 3 a.m. because they couldn't breathe. "You break a little," he said. "Everyone does. The trick is breaking in ways that heal instead of ways that shatter. You talk about it. You share the weight. You remember that precision isn't just about hitting targets. It's about knowing why you're taking the shot and being willing to live with the answer." Sophia nodded slowly. And if the answer is hard, the answer is always hard, but hard isn't the same as wrong. Mitchell walked to his workbench, opened the locked drawer, pulled out his notebook. The same one from 2004, now worn and thick with additions. This is mine. Every kill, every save, every suicide, every success. I keep it because forgetting feels like abandonment. He opened to the page dated March 18, 2004, showed her the 4 names, her father's name. This is where it started. This is the weight that created everything else. He flipped to the later pages. The 247, the 38, the additions over 18 years. And this is what came after. It doesn't balance. It never will. But carrying it forward is how I honor everyone in here. Sophia touched her father's name gently. May I take a picture? Of course. She photographed the page with her phone, then looked at Mitchell with eyes that were definitely Frank Torres's eyes. I'm going to carry your notebook in my head, Sergeant Mitchell, along with everything else. And when I come back, if I need help carrying it, can I call you? Yes, please. Don't wait like the others did. I won't. I promise. After she left, Sarah found Mitchell still in the workshop staring at the open notebook. You okay? I don't know. Frank Torres's daughter just thanked me for the thing that got her father killed. How am I supposed to process that? Sarah sat next to him. Maybe you don't process it. Maybe you just accept that complexity doesn't resolve. That good can come from tragedy. That your work over 18 years mattered to her even if it doesn't feel like enough to you. 18 years, Mitchell repeated. Has it really been 18 years? Since you came home? Yes. Mitchell looked at his hands, still scarred from HVAC work, still steady enough to fix compressors, still shaking slightly when he thought too hard about Ramadi. What have I built with 18 years? He asked. Sarah took his hand. You built a business, a family, a network of veterans who are alive because you answered the phone. A conversation about moral injury that didn't exist before you started talking. Permission for warriors to be human. That's not nothing, James. Is it enough? Stop asking that question. There is no enough. There's just what you did with the time you had. That night, Mitchell couldn't sleep. He went to his workshop at 2 a.m., pulled out the notebook, and started writing. Not calculations this time, not names, just thoughts. 18 years since I came home. 18 years of carrying weight that doesn't lighten, but somehow becomes bearable. I thought I was cleaning up a mess. Maybe I was just learning to live with complexity. Maybe that's the same thing. Sophia Torres is deploying next month. She's carrying her father's memory and my invention and the weight of command. I gave her the only advice I have: break in ways that heal. Hope it's enough. Hope she calls if it's not. The mathematics still don't balance. But maybe balance isn't the goal. Maybe survival is. Maybe building something good from something complicated is. Maybe just being willing to carry it forward is. He closed the notebook, but instead of locking it away, he left it on the workbench, visible, present, no longer hidden. The next morning, Emma found him asleep at his desk, the notebook open beside him. Dad? She touched his shoulder gently. Mitchell woke. Sorry. Lost track of time. Emma looked at the notebook, she'd never seen inside it before. Mitchell had kept it private, locked away, separate from family life. Is this the thing you've been carrying? She asked. Yes. Can I read it? Mitchell hesitated, then nodded. Yeah. You're old enough now. You should know. Emma read silently for 10 minutes, flipped through pages, saw the names, the numbers, the calculations, the weights. When she looked up, her eyes were wet. Dad, I don't even know what to call this. It's an accounting of cost and consequence, of everything my invention created. It's also proof that you cared, that you kept track, that you didn't forget or minimize or walk away. She touched the page with Sophia's father's name. Grace and we grew up watching you talk to veterans on the phone, watching you fly to DC or California for meetings, watching you carry something we didn't understand. This is what you were carrying. I never wanted you to have to know about this. But we should know, because this is you. Not just the HVAC guy who makes terrible jokes and burns breakfast. This is the part of you that matters, the part that tried to fix what broke. Mitchell's voice caught. I'm not sure I fixed anything. You fixed yourself. You took something that could have destroyed you and turned it into mission. That's fixing something. Later that day, Mitchell made a decision he'd been avoiding for years. He scanned every page of his notebook, backed it up digitally. Not to erase the original, but to preserve it. To make sure that if something happened to him, the accounting would survive. Then he wrote a letter. To Sophia Torres, to Captain Chen, to all the veterans he'd worked with over 18 years. He didn't send it yet, just wrote it. To those who carry the weight of precision, you are not alone. You are not broken. You are not weak for feeling the cost of being effective. What you carry is real. It's valid. It's the price of being both warrior and human, both precise and moral, both excellent and haunted. I've carried it for 18 years. Some days it's heavier than others. Some nights I can't sleep. Some moments I question whether anything I built mattered. But then someone like you reaches out, shares your weight, shows me that talking about it helps. That permission to be human saves lives. That the conversation we started together is making a difference. So keep carrying it. Keep talking about it. Keep breaking in ways that heal. Keep building lives worthy of the gift of survival. And know that somewhere in Tennessee, an old Marine who invented something complicated is still answering the phone. Still willing to listen. Still carrying his own weight and willing to help you carry yours. You don't have to carry it alone. That's the whole point. James Mitchell. He saved the letter. Didn't send it. But knowing it existed felt important. Like a message in a bottle for future storms. April 2023. Mitchell was invited to speak at the Marine Corps Sniper School at Quantico. 20 years after he'd first tested VT-1 there. He almost declined. Sarah convinced him to go. The commanding officer, Colonel Marcus Webb, met him at the gate. Mr. Mitchell, thank you for coming. Our students don't often get to meet the people who changed their profession. I'm not sure I changed anything. Just noticed something about wind. Webb smiled. You're humble. That's good. But you're also wrong. Come see. He led Mitchell to the school's museum. A small room with historical weapons photographs and memorabilia. In the center, a display case. Inside was Mitchell's original notebook from 2004. The actual notebook. Alongside it, the Radio Shack camcorder, a sample VT-1 scope, and a plaque. The plaque read, Sergeant James Mitchell, USMC inventor of the Vapor Trail Targeting System, VT-1. He taught us to see the invisible. First operational use. March 7, 2005. Fallujah, Iraq legacy. Transformed precision warfare and pioneered the study of moral injury in combat operators. This notebook contains his original calculations that changed how warriors engage the enemy and how they process the cost of that engagement. Mitchell stared at it. His notebook, behind glass, in a museum. How did you get this? He asked. We didn't. You're looking at a replica. But we wanted to ask your permission to display the real one, as a teaching tool, not just about ballistics but about responsibility, about the human cost of technological advancement. Mitchell thought about it. His notebook had been private for 18 years, a locked drawer, a secret accounting. But maybe that was wrong. Maybe the weight wasn't meant to be carried alone. Maybe sharing it was how you made it bearable. On one condition, Mitchell said, name it. You teach the cost alongside the capability. You show them this notebook and explain that every name in it represents a weight someone carried. That precision is powerful and necessary and expensive, that they need to be prepared for all three. We will, That's why we want it. Mitchell nodded slowly. Then yes, take it, use it, teach with it. Webb shook his hand. Thank you. This matters more than you know. That afternoon, Mitchell spoke to 200 Marine sniper students. Young men and women who would use weapons descended from his invention, who would carry weights he understood intimately. He told them about Ramadi, about Torres, about the invention born from guilt, about Carlos and the 11 others, about the 247 and the 38, about 18 years of trying to understand mathematics that never balanced. You're about to become the most precise warriors in history, he said. Your weapons are incredible. Your training is exceptional. You will be effective in ways previous generations couldn't imagine. And that effectiveness will cost you. Not might cost. Will cost. You will take lives at ranges where you can't see their faces, but you'll imagine them anyway. You'll be so good at your job that questioning whether you should pull the trigger will feel like weakness. It's not. It's humanity. So I'm giving you permission right now. Permission to feel the weight. Permission to question. Permission to seek help when the cost becomes unbearable. Permission to be both warrior and human at the same time. He paused, looking at their young faces. And I'm making you a promise. When you come back when you're carrying weights, you can't explain to anyone who wasn't there. My phone number will be available. Call it. Email me. Reach out. Don't suffer alone. Don't be the 12th or 13th or 14th suicide. Be the one who asked for help and survived. The room was silent. Then one student raised his hand. Lance Corporal David Park, according to his name tape. Sir, what if the weight is too much? What if we can't carry it? Then you share it. You break it into pieces and distribute it among people who understand. Therapists, fellow operators, family, if they can handle it. Or guys like me who've been carrying it longer and know the terrain. Mitchell met his eyes. The weight doesn't disappear, Lance Corporal. But shared weight is survivable weight. Isolated weight kills. After the speech, dozens of students approached him, thanked him, asked questions, shared their fears about deployment. Mitchell talked with each one, gave them his contact information, told them about the peer support network, made sure they knew they didn't have to face this alone. On the flight home, Mitchell realized something. He'd spent 18 years thinking he was cleaning up a mess, but maybe he'd actually been building something. A community, a conversation, a network of people willing to carry impossible weights together. The mathematics still didn't balance. But the community was real. The conversation continued. The weights got shared. And maybe that was the legacy. Not the technology, not the tactical advancement, but the willingness to acknowledge cost alongside capability. To teach warriors to be human. To give permission for strength and vulnerability to coexist. May 2023. Sofia Torres deployed to Afghanistan. She emailed Mitchell before she left. Sergeant Mitchell, I'm scared. Not of combat. Of becoming someone I don't recognize. Someone who kills efficiently and stops feeling it. I've seen what that does to people. I don't want to be that. But I also want to be good at my job. Want to protect my Marines. Want to live up to my father's legacy. How do I be both? How do I be effective and human? Mitchell wrote back. Lieutenant Torres. You're already both. The fact that you're asking the question proves it. The warriors who become machines don't ask. They just execute. Be effective. Protect your Marines. Make the hard calls. Take the necessary shots. Do your job with excellence. And then feel it. Carry it. Question it. Process it. Be haunted by it if you need to be. That's not weakness. That's the price of being human while doing inhuman work. Your father would be proud of you. Not because you're tough, but because you're thoughtful. Not because you won't feel the weight, but because you're preparing to carry it while also accomplishing the mission. And when you come home, call me. We'll talk about all of it. The effectiveness and the cost, the pride and the guilt, the mission success and the moral complexity. You don't have to choose between warrior and human. You can be both. It's hard. It's expensive. But it's possible. Stay safe. Accomplish your mission. Come home. We'll figure out the rest together. Mitchell, she deployed. Mitchell didn't hear from her for 6 months. Then, in November 2023, a package arrived. Inside was a challenge coin from Sophia's unit, a photograph of her platoon, and a letter. Sergeant Mitchell made it home. Mission success. 0 friendly casualties. 17 enemy kills confirmed across my sniper teams. And I'm carrying it. All of it. The weight, the pride, the guilt, the effectiveness. Just like you said I would. I'm not okay yet. But I'm talking to people. Seeing a therapist. Attending the peer groups you told me about. Breaking in ways that heal instead of ways that shatter. My father didn't get to do this. Didn't get to process, to heal, to carry the weight forward into a life that mattered. But I do. Because you built the structures that make that possible. Thank you for answering your phone for 18 years. Thank you for turning your guilt into mission. Thank you for teaching warriors that being human isn't weakness. I'm one of the ones who survived because you did. Semper Fi Second Lut, Sophia Torres. Mitchell put the letter on his workshop wall. Next to Corporal O'Brien's letter from 2006. Next to Captain Chen's wedding invitation. Next to photographs and emails and thank you notes from 18 years of veterans who'd reached out and survived. The wall had become a testament. Not to redemption, but to persistence. Not to balance, but to survival. Not to perfect mathematics, but to messy, complicated, beautiful human resilience. That evening, Sarah found him staring at the wall. You built something good, she said simply. I built something complicated. Those aren't mutually exclusive. Mitchell smiled. No, they're not. He thought about Frank Torres, who died in 2004, about Carlos Ruiz, who died in 2007, about the 11 others who didn't survive the wait, about the hundreds who did because someone was willing to answer the phone. The mathematics would never balance, but the work continued. The conversation expanded. The community grew stronger. And somewhere in that complexity, in that refusal to choose between acknowledging cost and celebrating capability, between carrying weight and building hope, Mitchell had found something that wasn't quite peace, but was close enough to live with. He pulled out his phone. Texted Sophia Torres. Proud of you. Call anytime. Day or night. You're not alone. She replied immediately. Thank you. Neither are you. And in that exchange, in that simple acknowledgement of shared weight and mutual support, Mitchell understood what he'd actually built over 18 years. Not a solution to moral injury. Not a balance between the 247 and the 38. Not redemption for the invention that changed warfare and cost lives, but a network, a community, a living testimony that warriors could be human, that precision could coexist with empathy, that carrying impossible weights was survivable if you didn't carry them alone. The wind still blew invisible across battlefields. But now, finally, warriors knew how to see it, how to account for it, and how to survive the cost of that clarity. And in Tennessee, an old Marine who'd learned to read wind kept his phone charged, his workshop door open, and his willingness to listen unlimited. Because some weights were too heavy to carry alone. But together, shared across a community built on honesty and humanity and hard-won wisdom, those weights became bearable. The notebook sat on his workbench, no longer locked away. Visible. Present. A reminder that remembering was resistance, that accounting was honor, that carrying forward was how you transformed guilt into mission and tragedy into purpose. Mitchell closed his eyes, feeling the weight settle familiar across his shoulders. Still heavy, still there. But somehow, after 18 years, finally balanced by something equally powerful. Hope. Community. The stubborn insistence that being human mattered more than being perfect. That survival was worth fighting for, that complexity could be carried without being conquered. The wind had taught him to be precise, but humanity had taught him to be whole. And in the space between those two truths, he'd built a life worth living and a legacy worth leaving. For the warriors still carrying, for the ones still learning, for the voices still reaching out in darkness, looking for permission to be human. Mitchell would keep answering, keep listening, keep carrying. Because that's what you did with impossible weights and complicated legacies, and 18 years of building something good from something broken. You carried it forward, together. One day, one phone call, one shared weight at a time.